let's just start out by seeing a show of hands. Who in here, for one reason or another, either a milestone birthday, a move, a birth of a child, has thought, what would my life have looked like if I had just something? All right, case in point. So we often live parallel lives, moving alongside others without even realizing how much we share or how much we have in common. So today we're going to explore a parallel version of our own lives and see where our paths may intersect with those around us. So everyone has a worksheet in their hand, right? So this is a timed activity, but if you are an expanding perfectionist like me, I'm going to welcome you to pull that off, sit at your feet for right now. There is no wrong way to do this activity. But the first thing we are going to do is we are going to write down 3 separate paths for our lives. We're going to just take 1 minute, dump it as it comes. Life as it is right now, what does our life look like today? Whether that's our jobs, our marriage, our kids, our hobbies, our interests. Life as it could be. So that thing that you may have pursued if you didn't make that decision, or if your math teacher didn't tell you that you couldn't cut it in journalism. And your heart's desire. What is that thing that you still have a little bit burning fire inside yourself that you kind of sort of still want to explore, but maybe haven't taken the steps to do? Let's just take a moment and get that out. I'm going to time us for 1 minute, but like I said, no right or wrong answers. It's whatever feels right to you. All right, I'm looking around the room, and it looks like everybody is about done. So thank you all for doing that and taking a moment to reflect internally. Let's just take a deep breath for a moment, because I heard that was a little bit uncomfortable. Let's recenter for a moment. Let's inhale for a second, and let's exhale. Those felt heavy. Let's try it one more time. All right, let's exhale. All right. So now's the fun part. Turn to a neighbor, or 2 or 3, and let's talk about something that surprised you from any of one of those 3 paths you wrote down. It could be the benefits or the challenges, or that thing that was burning up inside of you that you really had pushed back to the back of your head until you wrote it down on that paper. Let's take a moment and talk about that. Though our lives may seem parallel, connection is always possible, and sometimes all it takes is a conversation. So I do hope you were able to make a connection either with your neighbors or with that version of yourself that you may want to explore and reacquaint yourself with a little bit more. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. All right, I feel like we've talked a lot and you all are here to hear from Amanda, so it is my great pleasure to introduce Amanda Presgraves, our speaker today. Like we heard, the theme was parallel. Megan said, I have the perfect speaker. You gotta know this woman. I'm like, I know this woman. She's amazing. She is an author. She is a very strong community advocate. She feels super passionate about democracy to food access. She feels very strongly about being out on the trails, on foot, on bike, on whatever. I'll fix it.
Okay,
don't worry about it.
Thanks.
And I am just so excited that you get to hear from Amanda today, hear her story. I'm just gonna do this.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna.
I'm not used to not a MacBook. It's so different. The keys are on the different side.
Okay.
All right.
And I promise you I would unplug this so as
Oh,
not to
thanks.
break another bone
Yeah,
in your body.
please. We don't need any more of that. Well, thanks, Annika. Gosh, when you were introducing this topic and telling the story even about like your teacher, I got chills. And then Gabriel, that exercise, I was like, if I get too into this, like I'm gonna get more emotional. Just thinking about like where the path that I'm on right now, like I look into this audience, and I know like 60% of you, whether I have like curated your art gallery or worked for you and worked with you, or you're my husband or my best friend, or I run with you, like, or I taught your like business class. Like I have these parallel lives with each of you, and this is a really unique experience for me to stand up here and weave it all together and share this part of me that I often don't stand before people sharing. Usually like it's a siloed part of me as like the Bicycle Coalition or like Amanda the athlete. And I wouldn't have even seen myself as a creative if it hadn't been for one of those seemingly undesirable experiences that at our table we are talking about, like something happens to you in your life and you're like, okay, this isn't really what I wanted or expected, but then it like sends you down a whole different path. And that one for me, was 11 years ago. I was living in Harrisonburg at the time, except my role in the community was very different. I was a student at JMU, and I was swimming at JMU, and that's what brought me to Harrisonburg. And I had grown up swimming from a really young age. I started swimming at the age of 4. When my parents realized I had a very excessive amount of energy, they immediately like threw me into the sport and was like, this is where you're gonna thrive. Because it wasn't the classroom and it wasn't like an art class. It wasn't anything where I needed to be quiet. And soon swimming became like all of me. I did swimming from the age of 4 all the way through college, and it was how I saw myself. It was really good for me. It was where I thrived. I found purpose in swimming. I learned how to believe in myself from swimming, how to dream. All those things still carry over to a lot of what I do today. But when I was in college, after my sophomore year, I had torn labrums in both of my hips, and so I needed to get 2 hip surgeries, and that's why the cord is moved. We don't need another hip surgery. But that was the first time in my life that I had ever taken more than 2 weeks off of swimming. I woke up at 4 a.m. like every day of my childhood. This was like a huge part of me. And when couchbound for that entire summer, I was taking 8 months of off swimming, and I was like, shoot, who am I? Like, who am I when I don't swim? I didn't know what I was good at or if there was actually something I even cared about, because I was so passionate about swimming. And then that's taken from you. You're like, well, what is next for me? And during that time when I was at my parents' house for the summer recovering, it was hard. And I definitely went through like a depressive state. But I also started to notice these little things I was curious about. And I don't know about you, but like when I have an idea or like when I'm really excited about something, like even standing here, I get a little like jittery and like zaps go through my arms. And like when I have a vision or I have an idea for something, it's like there's no stopping me. Like it is like relentless determination. I'm steadfast, like move out of my way. And I had that feeling and I missed that feeling. And I forgot my slides here. These are all the things. But that feeling that I had was for a food truck. I started a locally stored student-run food truck when I was at JMU, and that was great. It became this outlet that I began to know myself as something beyond being a swimmer, and was like, wow, I have creative ideas. I really care about our local food system. I wanted to create entrepreneurial opportunities for students, but that's like really not what matters. What matters is that for the first time, I saw multiple facets of myself. Multiple facets that for a long time, I kind of suppressed because I grew up as a kid with ADHD. And I don't know about you, but I think most creatives in this room probably are neurodivergent at some point. But from a really young age, I was medicated from 4 through college, and focus was so emphasized to me. You gotta focus, Amanda, like be focused, hone in. And if I did a lot of things, I would be perceived as scattered or disorganized. And so I felt a lot of shame around pursuing many things in my life, because if I was being an athlete and I also like started a business, like, oh, she can't focus. She can't do just one thing. And therefore she's less good at it because she's putting her attention in many places. And so I fought that. I fought it for 10 years. And I'll be honest, like, I'm still working through this. Like, that, my hip injury was 11 years ago, but like, this is a process. It wasn't like my hips healed and I was like, yes, I'm a multi-potentialite, which I don't know if you've heard of the term multi-potentialite. Emily Wapnick coined this term, and it's really cool. She has a podcast or a TED Talk on this, and it's all about how we can pursue multiple parts of ourselves and it actually makes us better. So the thing about being neurodivergent is that your brain sees the way all of these things connect in the ways that other people don't. And sometimes I don't know where all these passions like connect or they're gonna take me, and like you kind of don't have to, but what I see is that this just felt necessary. Like, this was a way I had to express myself. It was a non-negotiable. Like, I couldn't just not move my body. I couldn't just not write the words, put them onto paper. Like, I couldn't just not show up in community spaces. I really, like, this was a really natural expression of myself. And so I found that the magic is at these intersections. The magic of myself was at these places. And like, when I wrote my book, it was combining like movement and sport and nature and philosophy and mindset. And when I coach, I bring in like my passion for exercise science and mental health. And when I'm doing my day job with the Shenandoah Valley Bicycle Coalition, I get to bring in movement and outdoors and events and advocacy and relationships. And it all goes together. Now, of course, it's not so linear. This is like a demonstration of my brain most of the time, okay? I won't pretend that it's like, oh, I have these neat little parallel lines and then they all come together and voila. No, it's like, this is my brain. But at the center, when it all comes together in like just the right way, like that's me. That's just who I am. And it's unreplicable. Like, that is the part of me that like makes my writing unique or like makes me a really fantastic athlete. And I listened to this great podcast with an author. His name is Brad Stulberg. And he had this great exercise where you guys should do this after this, because I've done this many times. I do it with athletes that I work with. But imagine yourself as a house. And all the different rooms in a house are parts of your identity. So like, you're a parent and you're an artist and you have a podcast and you also like lead CreativeMornings. It's really healthy to have all these rooms to go into. And what happens is, if, let's say like you're a painter and your whole self is a painter, or for me, my whole house was a sport, when it goes astray, you crumble. The foundation falls because there's no other rooms to go into. But when you have all these parts of yourself that you can explore, the term is called self-complexity. And you can get to know and identify with many parts of yourself. And it's really powerful because you are more robust and resilient when change happens. You get all these creative inputs from different environments. And like, that's cool. You're getting inputs other people don't. You don't get burnt out, because it's like, as soon as you start to get tired of one thing, you just like go into the kitchen and it's fine. But there's utility in exploring all these different parts of ourselves. And that brings me to how I express myself now. I spend a lot of my time doing work in the Valley for the Shenandoah Valley Bicycle Coalition. And, you know, I get to weave in this part of me that's an athlete, but also like loves connecting with people. And I get to hone my strengths and express myself in ways. I'm also still a professional triathlete, and triathlete is swimming, biking, and running. And inherently, being a triathlete, I'm like not really good, like the best at one of those things. Like, I'm just really good at doing all of them. And like for so long, I've questioned like, okay, if I could take the 20 hours a week I put into training, and like I actually put that into my like writing, would I be a better writer? Or all that time that I take with my day job, if I just focused on coaching, would I be a better coach? And I felt a lot of conflict with that, because our culture really pushes specialization. I don't know if you felt that way, but it's like, I feel this pressure often, like, if I'm not the expert in one of these things, like, why should I be up here talking about it? Because someone else can talk about it to you that knows a lot better than me. But I found that, like triathlon, like the reason why I love the sport is because doing each of the disciplines really recharges me into the next one. So like, I had another accident. I fell off my mountain bike in November and I got surgery on my arm. And so I haven't been able to ride my bike. And I'm recovered and doing great, but I've been like fully diving into running. And I'm so glad I have another thing I can do. But I'm kind of like, all right, I like doing 3 sports. Like I like moving around my time between swimming and biking and running. But when I'm able to split my energy in all those, I feel more recharged and I'm excited about like then hopping on the bike or getting in the water. And the same thing goes for my life too. Last night, there's like a handful of people in the room that I saw like in this, like working for the Bicycle Coalition last night, like whether you're like taking pictures at it or like setting the table or there as a bike rider and community member. It's so cool that like we all have many of these outlets, and I see all these different parallels of my life less as like competing against each other, and they more like complement one another actually, and they work synergistically, and I gain a lot of inspiration from the ways that they intersect, like this. And so my hope is that you can save yourself a lot of the self-doubt and like questioning that I have done. And that you can see the ways that your own parallel lives connect and support each other. And just like when I was talking about that like little excitement and zap that I get through my body when I'm really stoked about an idea, like I have that in all these different areas of like sport and community. And like when I just pursue it, like when I just like go with the pull, like there is something so magical at the intersection of all of that. And that's what I hope that you can explore. Thank you. Yeah.
I love this so much.
I know. Do you not relate? Like, yeah.
I'm German. My house is like very tidy. Everything's put in its place. That freaks me out. Good for you. That's why I'm not an author and an athlete and a community builder and an advocate. That's why I do this, and that's good enough. With that being said, for those who've never been here, here's what's going to come next. We're going to do some Q&A with Amanda, because I'm sure some of you have burning questions. After that, we will do some public service announcements. And after that, we're going to take a group picture, which I like to forget, so please don't let me forget.
I know, I feel like I've only done it at one of the Creative Mornings I've been at, so I'm excited to be in this one.
All right, so who has questions for Amanda?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Joe.
Hi. I can relate to the ADHD thing and people telling you to focus on one thing and doing a lot of things at a time. Once you kind of explored yourself and found that confidence in the way that it's okay to have passions, did people around you also change their definition of that?
That's such a good question. I feel like I'm still developing that confidence every day. Like as soon as a new thing comes in, I'm like, okay, buckle up. Like, let's like redefine ourselves again. I'll say one thing. Like my dad is also very similar to me, and I'll say like it was great having him as a role model as a kid who was like he really did encourage that. And so I've always felt like I've had his little voice there. And the more that I write my own story and like I'm the narrator of it, like physically writing a book, I think that really changed it for me. Like I really started to embrace it, and then what I put out was mirrored back to me. And so I started to be in groups like this, where it's like no one's looking at me and like she's crazy, because I feel like most of you guys are doing the same thing. And it feels like really good to be in a place like this where I'm like not the only one. So if I was like in a corporate boardroom, I probably would be like, these people don't really get me, but that's okay. I'm just gonna like still be me. But yeah, I guess it takes still building that confidence, and yeah, I just like find the people that surround myself with. I don't question myself as much anymore. Yeah, and write your own story. Yeah.
Do
Caitlin.
you experience lapses between like the things that are pulling your interest, and what do you do when nothing's really calling
Oh,
you, and how do you also create like that rest time as an interest?
Yeah, and I think this also goes to the point of like the lapses, like if you're thinking of the house, like I'm not in the living room and like the bedroom at the same time, right? And so the one thing that always really helps me personally is moving my body. And like when I'm able to do that, I think like it's like a floodgate of my ideas, but I have injuries or like work is really calling me. And so yes, it can be hard to have that inspiration, but like I think we create our state too. And like for me, that's moving. Like when I'm physically like propelling my body, the ideas come. And so I think that's how I like find it again. But it's also like when I can't do that, it's my environment in a different way. So like I think about like how much I love reading your Substack, and like when I get your writing in my inbox, and I'm absorbing it makes me want to sit down and also like put my thoughts to paper. And so like it really is like I'm like, oh, I like how she like added a song at the end, like I should try that sometime. And or like, oh, I want to listen to this. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the environment is a big piece of it. Like it creates who we are. So I would say like that's how I get out of it, because yeah, I for sure do. And sometimes it's really important. I like don't want to understate how important it is to feel a lapse, because as uncomfortable as this is for me, rest is crucial. And it's probably the most uncomfortable thing to rest, but it is like when I got surgery, even this year, I was like, oh my gosh, I needed that. Like I needed someone to sit my ass in a seat and like make me do nothing for a little bit. And then I recharge, as much as I hate it. Megan?
Okay, so can you tell us more about how this looks for you in the future, and what
Oh.
you plan and how that works
Man.
with all of your tangled web of brain?
Oh, okay, I'll start with saying that when I like pursued anything of these, perfect, you put it on this slide. When I went into any of these, I didn't go into it being like, I want to win a world championship. I've never done that, by the way. But like, or I want to be a best-selling author. I also was not a best-selling like New York Times author. But I went into it because it felt like a part of me that needed to happen. And I've stopped, like, I don't want to say I've stopped setting goals and planning, because like I'm very much like an intention setter. But I've just learned I have no idea. Like I have no idea how it's going to turn out. But if I just like go in the direction of like what is exciting me, I do not know what's going to excite me tomorrow, Megan. I just don't. Yeah. I'll tell you one thing I'm excited about. I'm training to hopefully run 100 miles. Like I'm really excited about that idea. I don't know if I'm going to get to the start line, which is the finish line often. But I'm like really excited about that and like what's coming up for me when I'm out on the trails, like running with new people. So like that's one thing that I'm pursuing. Or like even just like being in the second year of my role at the Bicycle Coalition, we're like starting new projects. I'm kind of finding like my footing a little bit more. And I also don't know what's going to come of that. But yeah, we were sitting at the same table doing that exercise. And I was like, I can't even think about this. Like I'm going to get too emotional going into like sharing this presentation. So Megan, I don't know. I don't know what is next.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm okay with not knowing.
Yeah.
It's all, yes.
So I love what you said about society and sort of prioritizing specialization. I think society also prioritizes progress.
Yeah.
Progress. So if we're doing a million things at once, which is so productive and helpful, how do you define progress, and what does that look like? Whether it's a goal or whether it's just sort of an incremental.
Ooh. Oh, how do I find progress? Okay. If I define my progress by like accolades or recognition, I would probably feel really unsatisfied with myself. But it's aligning what my intention is with like what my action is. So like I'll use the example of like writing a book. Yeah, I didn't like have the goal to be like a New York Times bestseller. That like, this was like, I don't really care about that. But I was like, I just need to get my story onto paper. Like that's the first step. And then it's like, okay, now how do I like illustrate this and have concepts? And like, then how do I share this with people? So like just with like setting a goal, I studied exercise science in school. So like I'm very much like understanding the psychology of like goal setting when it relates to sports. It's very similar to like how I defined like progress too. Very small steps, manageable steps, ones that I can measure in a sense of a feeling, and I can notice my progress. And it might not be the ways other people notice my progress. And I think that's really important. It could be like putting out an article or Substack once like a month. And then sometimes I might have a health thing come up and it's like, no girl, you got to put that on hold because you need to prioritize this aspect. Yeah, that's kind of like the small steps are where I like to put my attention.
All right, one more year, and I do encourage you when this official part is over, hang around, grab some coffee, co-work, chat with Amanda. This is not the end of all.
Yeah, I'm excited to work here today too. This is super cool that the Hub is inviting us to hang out. So I love that these two events combined.
First off, thank you for allowing one of my harebrained ideas that I've wanted to do all the time, have a gallery.
Oh, one of the best galleries.
Come to life for me.
Yeah, that was so
Otherwise,
special.
I just wouldn't have gotten done. So I have the same issue too, where it's just like I really do have so many different things I want to do.
You do, and you do them.
And to a fault at some point, has there been some kind of inner dialogue or something within yourself to help you edit and hone in on what's going to be more advantageous for you to pursue?
Yeah. I think it's like one, just like noticing where my energy is going, but like this is kind of like, I'm kind of nixing consulting right now. Like if someone reaches out to me, it's like, it's just not where my attention is. Like I don't even feel sometimes in the right position to do that because I'm focused on other things. And so I'm like learning how to kind of say no to some stuff and say yes to some other things. I'll say one more thing to that, which is like the aspect of like being a partner and friend. Like that's when I'm like really wanting to prioritize and like integrate more into what I do. Yeah, the inner dialogue is often like, all right, what can you actually do and get excited about? I'm not here like to pretend like you can do all the things perfectly at once. Maybe if you're Kirsten. But I've recognized like, all right, I kind of got to pick like 3 big things. And it's the cool thing about the seasons, like in nature and in sport, is that like that's going to ebb and flow. So like this time of year, I'm really excited about like getting back on my bike and like running. And in the summer, it's like I'm all in on swimming again. But it also kind of, we have like seasons with work and like when people are out on the trails. And then I have seasons with like with my writing, I find when I'm like in the winter and I'm like, it's darker, I'm indoors, then I lean more on that. So find your rhythms and like the seasons and modulate your activities. Like you're not meant to do like go like full gas all year and all the things. Like it is important to rotate them through. And so I've kind of found my rhythm with that. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yay!